So what we're at here is the Strand barracks in Limerick, and during the War of Independence would have been occupied by regular British soldiers from the Ox and Bucks Light Infantry Regiment in England. At the time of the beginning of the Civil War, just after the treaty was signed, the British started evacuating from large towns and cities like Limerick, and there were 4 military barracks in Limerick, and there were a number of RIC barracks as well. So the 4 barracks in Limerick were the Castle Barracks, the New Barracks, the Ordnance Barracks and the Strand Barracks. And this one here was the only one on the western or Clare side of the river really, but it's still part of Limerick City. So when the Ox and Bucks Light Infantry evacuated or left this barracks, and the other British forces were withdrawing, the anti-treaty IRA came in and took control of Limerick in the spring of 1922. Now, this caused a major problem for the Free State Army, the National Army, the pro-treaty side, because you had very strong anti-treaty Republican forces down in Cork and in Munster. You had very strong units in Galway up in the west and in West Clare, but East Clare and the area around here in Limerick, a lot of it was actually pro-treaty, and IRA units like Michael Brennan's East Clare Brigade and Donnacha O'Hannigan's East Limerick Brigade have been very active in the War of Independence and had gone pro-treaty. So the Republicans wanted to hold the city in the Civil War to unite the West Coast as a Republican area. Munster with Connacht and up into Donegal would have been their heartlands, whereas the pro-treaty side wanted to capture it to try and drive a wedge between these different Republican areas. And obviously, as well as that, Limerick was key in having 4 large military barracks and control of shipping and control of the railway network as well. The fighting in Dublin in the Civil War begins on the 28th of June 1922. The fighting in Limerick doesn't begin until the 11th of July 1922. At that stage, Dublin City, the Republican forces there have already surrendered. What happens is, when the Civil War begins in Limerick, there's about, or is due to begin in Limerick, there's about 700 anti-treaty IRA guys here under the command of Liam Lynch. These were very experienced fighters. A lot of them have been former members of, the 3rd West Cork Brigade and so on. And the North Cork units as well were all here stationed in the city, along with other Republicans from Tipperary. So there was 700 of them, and they were outnumbering about 400 pro-treaty troops, led by the former leader of the IRA's East Clare Brigade, Michael Brennan, who's now in charge of the 1st Western Division of the Free State Army. Brennan's plan is to keep negotiating with Liam Lynch, to keep ceasefire or peace talks going, and the longer he can keep that happening, it gives him time to play for reinforcements. And eventually, he gets armoured cars and he gets armoured lorries down here on just in around the 11th of July 1921. A Free State soldier is shot in a dispute over a barricade, and then the fighting begins between the two sides. Now, really, the first few days of the fighting, very little happens. There's skirmishes back and forwards, there's barricades being taken, there's attacks on different barracks and different buildings occupied by the both sides, but nothing really serious happens. And a lot of the fighting is in Limerick City itself on the other side of the river, and very little action has happened here at the Strand Barracks. But this becomes one of the key battle points in the fighting for Limerick City during the Civil War. And it's occupied by a guy called Connie McNamara. He's the commanding officer there. He'd been from the Mid-Limerick Brigade during the War of Independence, and he'd been involved in several important actions during the War of Independence, including the attack on Kilmallock RIC barracks. So when the fighting starts to spread to this area on the 15th of July, Michael Brennan, the Free State leader, actually manages to get in phone contact with him and asks him to surrender. And McNamara says he won't surrender while he has ammo. And the Free State, in one of their first attacks, actually drive armoured cars right up in front of the barracks building and the surrounding buildings, and they actually rake it with machine gun fire with a Vickers machine gun, which would have been inside the Rolls-Royce armoured car. McNamara refuses to surrender, Again, there's various different attacks made over the coming days, back and forward. These armoured cars keep rolling up, trying to throw grenades in the window. Over here you can see St. Mary's Cathedral, the Protestant Church of Ireland Cathedral, and the Free State Army actually mounted a Lewis machine gun on top of that and used it to strafe the buildings and the barracks here as well. And on the 18th of July, more Free State reinforcements arrived in Limerick, led by Owen O'Duffy and General Ori Murphy. And they had the key piece of equipment with them. They had artillery. So they actually set up 18 and 21 pounder artillery guns just at the other side of this river, which would have been only, 100, 200 yards away. Bear in mind, these artillery guns are designed for being used, at a distance of, tens of miles. Here you have them being used at point blank range. In fact, the only way the Free State could aim them was to actually look down the barrel at what they were pointing at, because normally the sights wouldn't begin except for a much longer distance. So they started pounding the building with artillery, and still McNamara and his men refused to surrender. At one point, McNamara was again on the phone. The Free State were asking him to surrender, and he refused to, and the phone receiver was actually shot out of his hand. That's how intense the fighting was. Of course, no matter how many barracks they had, the Republicans couldn't hold out against the artillery that the British had supplied to the Free State side, and one by one the barracks in town began to fall. First you had the Ordnance Barracks, and then the Castle Barracks just across the river were being attacked, and eventually the garrison here in the Strand Barracks saw that smoke had gone up from the new barracks, what is now Sarsfield Barracks, that it was being burnt as the Republicans there were retreating, and they themselves decided to surrender. And if you look, it's amazing, at the front of this building and at the front of the houses beside it, people often talk about seeing the bullet holes in the GPO or the forecourts. This to me is real history and real battlefield archaeology. If those holes could speak, if that house could tell a story. Now, it's important as well we remember that during the fighting in Limerick, even though it wasn't, as widespread, or it isn't as well known as the fighting in other cities like Dublin, you're talking about 11 civilians being killed, you're talking about 7 members of the Free State Army, 3 IRA volunteers being killed, and 1 Fianna Éireann scout, as well as about £200,000 in damages, which would have been a significant sum of money at the time. And if you look at old photos of the Strand Barracks back then, you see holes blown in the wall of it that are literally big enough that you could drive a bus through if you had a bus back then.